I'm ready whenever you guys are. I'm just waiting for a green light.
Yeah, we are just so. Hi, everyone. People are already joining the meeting, so we'll wait like a couple minutes to see who else joins, and then we can. So we are recording the meeting, and we are going to start. Okay, Susan, let's just wait a little longer.
Of course. I'm ready whenever you guys are. I'm just waiting for a green light.
Yeah, we are just so. Hi, everyone. People. Gisela, desliga o vídeo. Do vídeo. We'll wait like a couple minutes to see who else joins, and then we can. So we are recording the meeting, and we are going to. Desliga o teu som, consegues? Let's just wait a little longer.
Of course.
Hi, everyone. We'll just wait 2 more minutes to see who else joins, and then we can start, okay? Okay.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So let's start this DESIS Café with a message from our DESIS coordinator, Teresa Franqueira, who unfortunately will not be able to be present today, but she left the message for you guys. So after that, I will leave the floor to our host of today, Susan. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So let's start this DESIS Café with a message from.
That's pretty cool. Joyce. Hi, monkey. Are you going to be complaining again?
We don't have sound, Gisela. I think you have to activate the sound.
Okay, so this is not working. I will try another way. Okay, I believe that now is it. Are you able to see the video?
We can see it, but can't hear it.
Typically on Zoom, when you do share your screen and you need a sound, there's a box that needs to be checked. And you probably forget that because it's not tied to it. So maybe you want to redo it.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening.
Okay, now it's on.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on which part of the globe you are. Welcome to the 4th DESIS Café. The main concept behind this event is to make DESIS Café a virtual and informal place where DESIS Labs can meet and talk about their activities, research, projects, expectations, thoughts, and so on. Remember, this is a place to talk informally and share ideas, and the purpose is to enhance connections within our community, to foster knowledge exchange and share good practices and difficulties, or just to have a coffee together and chat about life as friends do when they join in a cafe. Today, I will not be attending DESIS Café, but I leave you with the hostess of this session, Susan Melsop, from the OSU DESIS Lab in Ohio State University from the United States, and also with Gisela from the DESIS Network Coordination Team in case you need anything. I would like to add that the next DESIS Café will take place on the 17th of November and will be hosted by Nick Spencer from the DESIS Lab in Northumbria University, United Kingdom. You can also save the date for 30th of September, when DESIS Network will organize the event Conversations for the Planet with the topic Social Innovation in post-catastrophic contexts. We expect this event to act as a tool to build and share knowledge about social initiatives for the planet. We will have 2 guests that will discuss the issue of environmental sustainability and climate emergency in order to keep our focus on this topic and challenge also our DESIS Labs to develop more projects to tackle some problems related with this. I hope to meet you all there. For now, enjoy your coffee, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.
So, Susan, I will leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Gisela. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. I'm so pleased that there are so many people here. And I want to introduce my colleague, Sebastian Pearl, from Ohio State as well. And we're also honored to have Marianne Beecher here, who's the chairperson of our Department of Design at Ohio State University. I'm going to give you really quickly a little tiny bit of background. Good morning, Ezio.
Ciao.
Good morning for me.
Good
Good afternoon for you.
Sorry to be late.
No problem.
Here I am.
Our DESIS Lab began in 2018, and I think we've been very productive and very ambitious with our vision for the DESIS Lab, picking up on all the cues from the other DESIS Labs globally, as well as all the proliferation of research and body of knowledge and expertise that ESIO has done such a great job of kind of providing us over these years. Since 2018, Seb and I got started ambitiously with a number of projects. We'd like to share with you those today. Just to give you a little bit of context about our DESIS Lab, in order for what we're really trying to do is build collaborative partnerships with any of you out there in the world that are also working in kind of similar issues or pondering similar questions. So the way that I often think about this is we may be doing things quite, locally with our community partners, but oftentimes the challenges are global and are vast and are happening around the world. And I think that we can obviously learn from each other when we think about what we can do and how we engage at a local level, but really how that is maybe effective in a larger kind of systemic way as well. So without further ado, I'm going to let Sebastian introduce himself real quick, and then I'll share one of my projects, and then Seb and I will probably be kind of tossing the ball back and forth a little bit this morning.
Thank you, Susan. So good morning, good day, everyone, depending on where you are. Yes, I'm Sébastien Proux. I'm an associate professor here in the Department of Design. And as Susan said, I came here a few years ago from Montreal, and one of the first projects we started when I got here was to establish this DESIS Lab that we have been working hard to build up and use as as a structure to bring our colleagues in the department together and gaining momentum as most of us here at Ohio State works on and are showing concern in our design work and our scholarship towards social responsibility and sustainability. So yeah, that's a little backstory about who we are. As Susan said, we want to keep this conversation this morning really casual. I think we're going to present a few projects, but we don't want this to be a show and tell. And so we're really looking to engage in conversation with all of you. I would actually normally have a cup of coffee with me, but apparently the heating system is working in the room that I'm sitting in right now. So adding coffee to that would just make it awful. So I'll stick with bottled water. I think Susan wanted to start with sharing kind of a project that started to happen before our DESIS Lab started, but it kind of tells the genesis of who we are and where we're going forward with.
Thanks, Sebastian. I'm going to share my screen a little bit. The first part of the screen that you'll see is simply our DESIS Lab website. And I would say that it's still very much under construction, and we continue to upload and bring it kind of up to date with our projects and our work. So please stay kind of posted to that as we get it more robustly filled out. What I would like to do is share with you actually a project that, as Seb said, started slightly before we were officially part of the DESIS. But I think it's important, particularly for ESIO, to know that I have been reading his work for quite some time, and so much of his writings have informed the way that I've approached much of what in America we call community engaged scholarship. And this notion, one of the most important aspects for me is this idea of being, privileged to be trained designers and educators, but really looking out into the world to see who are the social movements, who are the collectives. In America, we might call them nonprofits. Around the world, we might call them NGOs, who are doing the kind of work that we might value and really want to basically amplify the work that they are doing. So I drive this idea from Ezio very clearly saying, look out in this vast world to understand who's doing the really good work, then join them and amplify the work that they are indeed doing. So I'm going to share with you, this is about a 3-minute video. I think it's going to really quickly kind of give you the context of the project that is ongoing in Brazil with, it's called the National Movement for the Street Situation Population. Movimento Nacional de População de Rua, or Pop Rua is the term that they like to be referred to as the street situation population. We've partnered with them in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and also partnered with Mackenzie Presbyterian University, also in Sao Paulo. And I'm going to run the video, and then you can ask any questions you might have. Design is understood as something that only the wealthy can afford, and it's a creative way to solve problems. So this is really the idea, to bring people from different cultures, different language barriers together, to exchange ideas, to learn cultures, to learn languages, and then to basically help or provide assistance to those who may not have access to what's traditionally considered high design.
I think, like, as a design major, it's really important to use it for the greater good. So I'd say social design and using your knowledge and skills and helping out the community and people in need, and kind of showing that design can do more than just aesthetically pleasing things and help people.
Bom, acho que projeto social, acima de tudo, é você pensar, fazer projeto pensando nos outros, né? Esse projeto é basicamente isso, ele é voltado para os moradores de rua. É meio que a gente tentar entender como que é para eles viver, né? Tentar um pouco entrar na pele deles e ver as dificuldades deles, ver o que eles precisam e de algum jeito tentar solucionar isso com o que a gente é capaz.
Você traz o design para trabalhar do lado social, eu acho que a primeira coisa é entender para quem que você está trabalhando. Design é você estar projetando para pessoas, porque são pessoas projetando para outras pessoas. E eu acho que é isso que a gente tem que ter na nossa mente. Foi muito importante para a gente, e foi bastante importante não só para mim, mas para o restante do grupo. Quando, no primeiro momento, a gente achou que seria só mais um projeto, assim, e a gente pegou muito como uma causa nossa. Como eu faria um mobiliário para minha casa?
Acho que o objetivo do projeto que a gente está buscando é realmente fazer um projeto de verdade, por mais que o tempo seja curto e a gente esteja limitado, sair da sala e criar uma coisa que seja real, sabe? Design bom de verdade. Eu acho que é isso que eu espero, é isso que eu quero que a gente atinja.
É muito difícil tudo isso acontecer, mas ao mesmo tempo as coisas foram bem. Quando o projeto acontecer e o design acontecer, a gente começa a enxergar o caminho certo. Eu acho que o mais legal é isso, né? A gente tá tentando se entender e se entender naturalmente sem perceber. Eu acho que isso é o mais bacana do projeto.
Design is for people. So if you're not thinking about the people for the betterment of people, then what is your design for? It's really humbling. We were talking with some of the students, and we still realize, even though we're from completely different cultures, completely different countries, we're still very similar. We have a lot of the same aspirations, goals, a lot of the same obstacles, but just like slightly different things. And realizing how much privilege we have and opportunities we have, knowing that there's still so much we need to do in the world, it is really grounding to be able to, yes, think about these social impact issues, but also to like directly have a hand in helping, even if it's just a little bit.
So that's a little bit of the work in Sao Paulo, Brazil. I want to just open it up. This is a coffee chat, not a presentation. So I just wanted to, does anybody have any questions? I know that it may have been really difficult to understand the site. And I do have more images of that, but just want to, does anybody have anything? So let me maybe provide a little bit more of the context to you. This was really our attempt to partner with a very new organization, this social movement for the street situation population, and by partnering with them, we were able to basically advocate for their cause, and our advocacy comes through as designing and building. And we try very hard not just to design for them, but actually design with them. So in the 2 years running of taking students to South America, we were able to get more and more of the Pobrua, the population from the street, to actually engage in our hands-on making, which, you know, for me, for the students and for the Pobrua, that was really, that was the whole point really, is to engage everybody in what I call an equitable exchange of affairs, where we really begin to break down hierarchical systems and this idea of decolonizing design, and design just being kind of held, a power held by a certain group of people, and instead opening it up to really authentically share with basically non-designers, so they can have an equal voice in the outcomes of their physical built environments. By doing this, what we were able to do for this center that the Pobrua have been basically gifted from the city government in Sao Paulo, what we are able to do is help support them in their mission to create programming for the street situation population. They want to extend education. They want to have computer courses. They want to have, it's called the Center for Social Integration for Art, Culture, and Trabajo work. And so what we were able to do was work with them and help them build furniture interiors in this vast 12,000 square foot vacant space that had no infrastructure for any of that programming to occur. And so over basically a 2-semester course, 2 different courses times, we went down, heard what their priorities were, and then co-created things with them over a period of time.
Nick asking, how is this part of our curriculum? And this is a good question. And it's also interesting because it allows us to talk about the structure of the curriculum at Ohio State. So a couple years ago, well, it has always been embedded in the program that we have a collaborative studio. So our department offer 3 undergraduate major, interior design, visual communication design, and industrial design. And in the spring, we have, you know, in the book, in the curriculum, a collaborative studio. And Susan undertaking was one of those collaborative studio where she was able to bring students with her in Brazil and during the spring semester. I think it was spring break But the collaborative studio is a great asset for us as a DESIS Lab because it allows to curate project every year with the DESIS Lab. So for me, for instance, I'm running a design and public health collaborative studio, which is attached to the research that I'm doing, under the umbrella of the DESIS Lab. So every year we have this activity, and it's an interesting studio because not only does it bring together students from all of our major, but we are making it a vertical studio. So we have third year and fourth year students participating. And so that means the students get a chance to do 2 collaborative studio during their undergraduate study. And so that is a great opportunity because the first time the students do it, get to understand what it means to collaborate. But then the next time around, they have an experience of doing it, and their contribution to it is elevated and can be of a more substantial matter. And so we have a breadth of topics. We typically have six different collaborative studio, and many of them tend to topics that are related to the agenda of the DESIS Lab. So that's really kind of a great opportunity that we are offering our students to interact with the DESIS Lab here in our department.
I think it brings up a really interesting point that with these optional studios, the 6 optional studios per year, it provides an opportunity for the Department of Design at Ohio State to actually open it up and have these relationships with other university students and other faculty members. And whether there's an exchange, whether there's a literal on-site design project to do together, or whether some of the design is simply done remotely. I think it provides us in the DESIS network opportunities to find where we might actually begin to bring more of our students together. My experience of trying to do this for the last few years with my colleague Giuliana Bertolini at Mackenzie Presbyterian in Sao Paulo is that there's a ton of coordination, as you all well know, that has to be done, but it is so worth it at the end of the day. Particularly if that person that you're trying to coordinate and do this collaboration with is a friend, because then it's not work and it's not a task at all. It's just your dear friend across the globe that you're just checking in on to see how you're doing, and then bringing your students together around some really kind of worthy cause. So I certainly welcome this idea more and more. And that's the beauty, I think, of the DESIS network, is that we have, we uniquely are now, connected in this kind of great way.
Maybe I can segue into another project. This one I won't be able to show you any result because this is a project that we are only started. Unfortunately, COVID kind of delayed the startup of that project, but I think everybody is on the same boat on that front. So as you can see right now, I'm sitting in a room with a weird screen behind me. Unfortunately, Zoom is flattening things out, but this is it's a sphere. And it's a virtual reality system called the IVE 3D that was developed by some colleagues. And we started the research project to explore how we could bring the system into the hand of the population and engaging co-design using virtual reality. And so that was the kind of the spark of this project. The system has been proven to be a really effective technology to support collaboration. But as of today, most of the work that has been done with the system has been done with experts. So, designers working with designers or architects and engineers. So experts that speaks the language of design to an extent. So the project that we want to explore is, can we bring people from the community and engage in co-design activity working with this system, which was really well designed because it doesn't require extensive skills to manipulate. So it's being controlled with an iPad, so you can sketch on it and you can actually see your intervention come up really directly on the screen. So you don't require a headset, and the beauty of it is you can see the highs of the people with whom you are working, which is kind of a downfall right now of using virtual reality as a collaborative tool. So what we have created with this project, we are calling it the Digital Public Participation Lab. This is a project that is a research project, of course, but it's also a community outreach project. As this lab, right now it's currently set in our Department of Design building, but it will be moving as soon as the pandemic gets under control. So we are partnering with a public school here in Columbus that has given us 2,000 square feet of space with our own door. So we're going to be able to install the Hive and a maker space alongside it, and make it available to the public. And so right now what we're developing is a really kind of a public facing project where community organization that have mostly urban project or urban problems, social problems that they'd like to bring the community to discuss and kind of solve the problem together are going to be able to use the system, which we're going to be able to facilitate, for them. It's a really exciting project. We're eager to get it. We're really eager to get it started. Unfortunately, the pandemic derailed everything. But it's a really interesting thing for us to engage with as our university mission as a land grant university, as a kind of in its mission, the goal of serving and making sure that the knowledge we create trickles down into our local community and state community. So yeah, this is a really exciting new project. The Hive is a technology that is now spreading more and more. There's many of those in Europe and Australia as well. And the beauty of it is that they also connect. So that's I don't know if any other DESIS Lab has one. I think one in France does. But for anybody who end up working with this system, we would love to use that as a way to get in touch and get in contact and start working together. So, oh yeah, I forgot to say, so the goal with this project is to see, as we bring people together, if it has an impact on the quality of the public participation. So often what we see is the expert, try to capture what people say, but there's often what I call a lost in translation. So there's not always an capacity to capture everything that people say because they are not able to express it in conventional format, or they are not able to sketch it because it requires some skills, or public decision maker tend to overlook certain type of arguments rather than others. So using the system, we are trying to see if it can have an impact on the quality and intensity of democratic participation. And does it have an impact on decision making? Does it mean that more issues are going to be accounted for, and what are the nature of those issues, and how are people being able to share them using the tools that this system offers? So we don't know if it's going to be successful. We made a hypothesis that it will, but we're really eager to get started and get to produce research on that matter.
There's a really great question. Excuse me. There's a really great question in the chat, you guys. Aguinaldo, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes.
Hello. It's very nice. It's very nice to meet you. So the question is, you guys have your chat open. The question has to do with the as is occurring here in many parts of our United States, particularly metropolitan urban sites, is the number of our homeless population, and this idea of more and more people out of work or having challenges keeping employment. And I feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity to have worked with this national movement for the street situation population in Brazil, because it gave me a firsthand insight into their day-to-day existence and challenges, and still their aspirations to be completely, self-sustaining individuals. So to see this group of people come together and partner with each other in order to build a coalition for the street population was really great for me, but also to then include my students in this experience too, and then translate our design skills and knowledge in these collaborative partnerships and begin to work with them. The site that we worked at, because this group of people had been given a physical site, and I think it might be simply best to show pictures, because I think the pictures speak loudly. I'm going to take you to the screen, and I want to apologize. This was a presentation that I had to put together as part of a conference yesterday. But very, very quickly, I'll come back to those kind of research questions. I'm going to give you the site. Our site looks like this. This is basically a bridge spanning two neighborhoods. There's a large highway underneath and a road running above. The sandwiched area is approximately 12,000 square feet. So it's a vast vacuous space inside. And before we arrived to this space, it was already being occupied with exhibitions and homeless people living there. They were the national movement. When they came together, they were told that if you clean up that interior of the space, you can have that as a center to basically provide programming. And so what happened, Aguinaldo, is that they started to occupy all these different spaces that they had. There was, as you well know, in Brazil, there's collecting of trash and the remaking of trash into some purposeful element, right, that then can be sold. And so those kinds of activities were going on and continued to go on in this space. But they didn't have any way to just bring other people in. Like, for instance, here in the lower, they have a large kitchen, right? So they have a kind of a kitchen facility, basic needs kitchen facility, but there's absolutely they have a donation of books, right? But they had absolutely no way to house the books or to sit and eat a meal or just sit at a table and get away from, the street situation, their existence. So identifying these needs with the Pope Rua, they needed wayfinding, right, in their spaces. They needed bookshelves to store their books. So in this process, my intent was really to engage the students and the Pope Rua in this collaborative design build exercise, and basically build out skills, leave behind the physical elements, but build out the skills for the Pope Rua to have additional skills to their lives as well. So here you see them literally, helping in the making. Their contribution is as equally important as what the students were able to do. We collected their voice, and then had kind of a billboard, right, of their voices, their aspirations for living. At the backside is a cubby storage wall where they store some of their things. We tried to produce a sound attenuation wall to kind of dampen a lot of the noise from the different highways and the road above. But again, the Pope Rua were equally involved in the making, the co-creation. And if any of you are familiar with what I've tried to do is find a theory that basically can really emphasize the approach that I'm trying to take and introduce my students to, for me, a deeper journey of not just doing this kind of from cerebral up activities, but mind, body, and spirit. And so I have been reading and digesting Theory U and mapping the design process onto the social, what I call the social framework or social change theory, and of Theory U onto the design process. So here, these are recent pictures that Giuliana Bertolini just sent to me, and so they're using the things that we built for them 3 years ago. The screen walls and bench, the tables and chairs. And so everything that we've been able to do for this center are now being occupied by more and more of this group of people. So it really has been able to become a cultural center, a hub for learning, education, and culture for the Pope Rua, but beyond the Pope Rua too. Their idea is that the more people that can engage here, the less stigma is going to be for the people who are living on the streets. And of course, we stand in complete solidarity with that notion. Here's they have psychologists now who are coming in and working with the people. Here's a yoga class in this center space. These are photographic images of members of the Pope Rua who wanted to be represented in that space, which I think is super cool. So again, kind of moving from this power and privilege idea and the reconciliation with that to being open-minded and equitable exchange, from ego-driven, which certainly was what my training in architecture and design was all about, to echo-driven, radically related, as Susie Gablick might say, and theory to practice-based and place-based. So I hope that gives you a little bit more indication of the project in Brazil.
Yeah, I do believe that just being treated as people, treated by the name, not that just things below a bridge, but being heard. I think the key question is not so much the artifact that you could design, but bringing them into the conversation and allowing them to be heard. And this is an avatar for this dialogue and this communication. And many of these people, they don't have even addresses anymore. They don't have, no documents, no healthcare, nothing. So, yeah. And then someone come down to them and say, I want to design something for you to sit in a more comfortable way. It's a gesture of care and love, and this is beyond the artifact. The artifact is just the medium to reach this love to other people. But in Brazil, I think all around the world, The problem is now that people that were givers 2 years ago, that give things and help other people, they are now those that they need help now. There are many people, not just in Brazil, all around the world, that before the pandemic, there were people that are helping, many other people. Now they are on the other side. They are the ones without employment, but I see that there is many opportunities that have opened now. For example, a more distributed economy, this economy on the neighborhoods that, is more resilient to these catastrophes. Now, when people are buying food locally, contracting service locally, it opens new avenues for social innovation to, and it needs also new ways of income, new ways of healthcare.
Right.
And I think a good project, I would suggest you to, I can send you to your email. 20 years ago, Professor Brigitte Mager from Cologne in Germany, she presented a project that she did. It's called Gulliver Project. Gulliver Project is for the street people in Cologne in Germany. And what they did was similar to what you did. They took some toilets, unused toilets in the underground in Cologne that are not used, and they design very simple things. For example, address, to receive letters from there, a place to receive letters because they didn't have address anymore. Small aid kits, when you have sometimes people have small cuts on their legs or can become a huge problem because there are no protection, and they have like a small, like a Wi-Fi connection to send email if you want. But the key issue there is ownership, to know that they own the space, they are in charge, they can set the direction. And Mike, I like to want to know from you, because this takes longer than the visit from if you bring students from other places. This is far more complex to build this, like empowerment and so on. Just the co-creation of the artifact can be a step on this, but building this social organization of these people it takes a long time. So this Pop Rua was the one that was doing that, is it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think it made international news. There was a pretty horrific massacre of street situation population in the streets of Brazil. I want to say it was 2006, but my year could be wrong. I apologize for that. And based on that, survivors basically banded together and said, we need to stand in solidarity together in order to protect, and stay alive, right? And so over a number of years, they came together, and now they are in 2013. Maybe more recently, maybe it was 2015, they were basically recognized by the federal government of Brazil as a national movement for the street situation population. And I'll put that the Portuguese title down in the chat in a moment. But basically, from this consolidation, from this being a movimento, a national movement, they basically all of a sudden had at least a little bit of visibility of the dire situation that thousands, tens of thousands of people live in. That's their daily existence in the streets of Sao Paulo, right? And so finally, the city government of Sao Paulo gifted them this vacant space and said, you can have that space if you can really use it as a cause. And the way they talk about it is an exit from street living. Well, that exit from, yeah, go ahead.
Susan, I'd want to know, design students normally all around the world, they enter in the design course thinking, the conventional, what you call ego approach, more. But I wonder, it was a project done 3 years ago. what was the impact of this on these students? Do they, because yes, sometimes I see students that did once in their life, like a project like this, so they can tell, oh yes, I did once in my life, and they never come back to this approach anymore. But some of them embrace this idea, then even if they go to big companies and so on, they still have this strong ethos, social ethos and environmental ethos in their mind. What was the impact on the students 3 years after the project?
It's a really great question. Those who go into kind of maybe the corporate world, there are many that I never hear from again, but there are many that I do hear from, and I have heard, one has actually started a nonprofit organization, and he tells me that I had never known that design could be used in this capacity before, and that in my undergraduate studies that gave me the idea that I could use design for good, basically, right? So I have a couple people who have gone off and done that, and then others who joined much larger corporations in design, but they are now leading the socially responsible arm of that corporation, like a B Corp, right? Really thinking about the social mission or the social agenda, and building the company that way. So Aguinaldo, you're totally right. This really resonates with some people, and for others, it doesn't. And that's all. I think that's all I'm trying to do, is broaden what design can do, so that they don't just kind of think it's only this, so that it's much broader. And I think honestly, that's the foundation of what the DESIS Labs and the DESIS network is really all about.
And to add to Susan's, I think there's a culture in our department. So Susan and I are here, to represent the DESIS Lab, but this is one example of the type of project that we do, and many of our colleagues, and I would say most of our colleagues, are really invested in social responsibility through design. And as the instructor for the senior thesis in industrial design, this year we have a new scholarship. It's called the DESIS Scholarship for supporting the students who are doing social innovation project for the thesis project. And I just received, all of them applied because they're all finding, an angle to their project and making their social responsibility at the forefront of their activity. It's true that it's not all of them, but there's a really large part of our students who are really invested in the social consciousness of their work and their responsibility. And this project that Susan is doing, as well as many others that are being conducted in our department, is creating, really kind of pushing this culture of expanding what design can have as an impact as a social endeavor.
Julia.
Hi. Really great to see all you here, by the way. Greetings from Barcelona. I'm from São Paulo, so it's great to see a project from there. And I'm really curious, you were talking about decolonializing design, and I'm really curious about that, because I've worked a lot in the United States doing projects in Africa. And while I was doing that, these questions about colonialism were very strong for me, and I don't think I have the answers for all those questions. But I'm really curious, understanding the context, the local context, like working probably around Higienópolis, which is where Mackenzie is, right? Which is a very it's a neighborhood full of contrasts, working with street population and coming from the United States, that has a historic relationship of colonialism with Brazil, even if not, legally. We know that there is that strong hand of the United States in the Brazilian history. how does what would be different for you to work on that capacity in Ohio, or even think about those questions in your relationship with that project being in Brazil when we were talking about colonialism? It's just a question that popped up as I've been also struggling with it and very curious about that.
I certainly don't have like a 1 or 2 sentence that will just like clear this up, Julia. Thank you so much for that question. I mean, I think each and every one of us here can kind of contribute a little bit to that. I would say, and somebody asked in the chat a little bit earlier, you know, how do you prepare students for a trip like this? Because it will be, some of the students have never left the United States before, right? And the neighborhood that I take them to is, as you pointed out, not an easy neighborhood to dive into as your first impressions of South America and of Sao Paulo. That said, we do some readings and class discussions, and within the context of the Ohio State campus, we talk about power and privilege and colonialization, and we talk about, and what I really try hard to do is to make it just kind of a dialogue of exchange within a classroom, so that students can more or less begin to, when things come up, they begin to recognize where they sit, and they can kind of unpack their own implicit biases. I think many of our implicit biases are so undercover, and they don't really come up until there's kind of a reaction to something. And within the classroom, I try hard to kind of unpack some of those implicit biases. And we do a lot of reflective writing exercises, so that in a way they can kind of what I think I know, right? What I think I know is the reality of the world. And then after the trip and some in between, so they can almost begin to watch their own transformative learning over a process of, only, 12 to 15 weeks. It's a work in progress, Julia, I would say. The idea of decolonizing, the idea of working towards social justice and using design as your tool to get there. It's evolving, and it's definitely part of my passion and literally what drives me every day.
But that also circles back to the kind of the culture that our department is trying to instate. And so it's not just Susan and just Hi. I think it's a question that is brought up in many classes, so that the students kind of raise their awareness. So, we're probably not there yet but it's really a conversation that we introduce early on. We read about, and I know in my class, we read about care ethics in the first year in the program. And then when we have them back in the senior year, we talk about critical race theory, and it's easy to engage in that conversation because they've been open to it. It's not perfect, and we're really far from there. But I think it's something that we need to continuously talk, just like sustainability. It's not a one-off thing. So we'll do a project around that and then call it a day. It's a more essential and foundational type of conversation that we need to keep having and open our mind, and all kind of engage in that with an open mind and a respectful attitude. And so we have the luxury of being a pretty small department. So majors have between 16 and 18 students. So it's a really tight group. So the students kind of keep following. So it's easy to engage, and we're really on a first name basis. It's a really casual way. So engaging in conversation with the students there's no pushback. There's difference of opinions, but we're always, we create a safe space where I think the conversation is really respectful.
Ezia.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for the presentation. And yeah, it was really interesting. And given that I will not intervene at the end to say thanks to everybody, so it's also a thank to everybody, and also to underline how useful are these kind of meeting, at least for me, for sure. For the other, I don't know. But for me, for sure. I will repeat something I said also last time. When we started the DESIS, we were a small group of friends. We know each other. We did not need really to have this kind of exchange because everybody more or less was in knowledge about what the other was doing. And now, luckily, it's not anymore like this. So frankly speaking, there are a lot of things that are happening that I totally did not know as what you're doing, and also what was proposed in the previous meeting like this one. So this I think is very, very important. And I'm not so enthusiastic of the new technology in general, but in this case, we should really thank this technology that permit to do something that in DESIS we have never done before, and it's so easy, so friendly. Of course, it will be so better to meet each other and to touch each other, but given that in any case it will be difficult, also if we could have the possibility to travel more than we can, we have the possibility now to see somebody that otherwise would be very difficult. So sorry if I use your precious time to repeat this story, but given that not everybody that is today was the last time, I want to repeat it because I find that Teresa and the team that started this idea is genius. So it's something that, in my view, is changing the kind of atmosphere that we have in DESIS. So thanks for that. And now, few considerations. One is the last point. As you can imagine, the last point is transversal to everybody in DESIS. Practically every meeting. So I don't know if you know, there is another kind of initiative that's called DESIS Students. And when this is going on, and they try to, they are more directly the students. So let's say here we are more or less a teacher, I think. And in that case, there are more or less students. And they come up with this issue about decolonization again. So we should take it in account. But I think that, as has been said, it's a very complicated one. And now I tell my personal point of view. I am one of the colonizers. So I start from the culture of the colonizers. So we can be reflexive, we can try to do our best, but it's something that should see also the main position by the colonized. So I cannot be the voice of the colonized. I can try to understand better what we can do. At the same time, and this is maybe could be criticized, but I think me, all the person from the last century, male and white, I should not be paralyzed. So the wrong position would be if this story would bring to a kind of not knowing what to do and so stop doing. I think that we have to dare, because only doing we can reflect on what we have done and try to bring a new knowledge. And therefore, I will not go on now on the discussion about colonization or decolonization. I think that probably you know that we have another line of works. It's called philosophy talk. The philosophy talk has touched in a partial way this topic, but not so much. Now it's working on another very contemporary topic that is the more than human design. So every time that we say, well, we are designing for the human, afterward, we know that in reality, we should say we are designing not only for the human, but also for others that are not human. And also this one is a very complicated issue, but this is another story. everything interact, but in any case, we are not now here to talk about that. I only say that probably we should start a conversation also specifically on this, and especially for the people as you and some universities, there are several that have this tradition of bringing students from the north, even though, as in your case, a student can be not all white and male as me, but they could be also black and woman and many others, and bring them in some part of the world that are supposed to be more disfortunate. And I think that is the time to try to reflect on this kind of activity, because it's very dangerous activity. Or I want to say it's very slippery activity, because for sure, for the student, in the impact on the student, they come from the north. Normally it's more the north and goes from the south to the east. Of course, it's a fantastic experience. It's a fantastic experience by every point of view, simply going a place and see something so diverse and try to understand what is happening. So for the students, it's a fantastic experience. It is discussable, and it has to be discussed. What is the experience of those that receive this kind of help? Because already when we say we have to see what are the needs and we have to bring our help, here is what we have to be capable to discuss. And this comes to the issue about the colonialistic attitude. But the colonialistic attitude is not only this, but this is one of the most potentially most evident things. And here, I really think that beyond making a philosophy talk on colonialism and post-colonialism, that is really very complicated and philosophical issue, to try to put together in a kind of thread. We have some thread on topic of discussion on what is the meaning of bringing students from one place to work in another place. I would say not necessarily from the rich to the poor, but in general, when you take a bunch of people, you bring them in a totally different condition. So what they can really do in that condition, so why they are helpful or why they can do something with a positive impact. And I think that this could be a very interesting discussion. And if you don't know, we can talk in another moment, because this is a cafe. We have only to maybe to write some notes and afterward to go on in a more precise moment. But for instance, in my experience in all the school that I've done something, we have not done anything like this. But I know that maybe he did it in America and also Europe. So to try to put together and to seriously discuss what has been the effect of what has been done. I think that this, I don't know if you will be able to do it, but somebody should take the lead, and it's not me, and doing it, because there is a lot to learn how to do it better. So I want to be clear, I'm not negative about that. I only say that it's extremely slippery, extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And to conclude, finally, something that is relatively less slippery, because also what I'm saying is slippery in some way. You said, and Aguinaldo was saying, we should look to what design can do for jobs, and what in particular design for social innovation could do to create new jobs. I have to say, and we have a group of people that have a little bit started to work on it, and I hope that they will emerge. We also did, it's not yet presented, but will be presented soon, a booklet that tried to read what has been done in the past by this point of view. I am ashamed that we are only now focusing on such a fundamental point, but it is like this. So in the history of DESIS. We have not, we have always done things that could be read also in terms of job creation and new economy creations, but we have not really specifically focused on it. And I think that now is definitely the time to do it. Sometimes I say, well, it's not a big discovery, but in any case, I say, I'm sure that we will face to a new wave of social innovation. You know, the social innovation goes by waves. And there has been a wave that has been characterizing the first 20 years of this century. And I don't enter now, but if you pass through all the bibliography, all the case studies related to social innovation, you will see then the 90% have a certain common characteristics. More or less, it's middle class that want to live better. I have nothing against the middle class that want to live better, but it's mostly middle class that want to live better. And this has been important. I think that's important. As opposed to others, that there are some criticism against social innovation because somebody says social innovation is something for this middle class, white middle class. Maybe yes, mainly, not all, only, but largely it is like this, and the wave has been started and driven by the energy of this group of people. And for me, they and we with them did an interesting job. Nevertheless, things are changing. Things are changing dramatically, as has been said. And I'm sure that something else will happen. So we are to be very attentive to recognize what is happening, because very often the very new things are not so visible, but something that will represent not only this group of people, but also many others, and where the economical issue will have a much evident role than it has been in the previous wave of social innovation. So I don't know, this is not the conclusion of the discussion, this is the conclusion of my too long intervention now, contribution. And thanks in any case for everything. And in any case, get in touch and let's try to go on in one or two or three of these different threads that we can see. And this is the role of the DESIS Café, to see if there is something that we can capture from the discussion and could go on with something more specific.
Ezio, I just want to say thank you so very much for the critical perspective that you provide with the white or the northern going to the southern hemisphere, and that engagement and the slippery slippery slope that entails. But I also want to say I appreciate you saying being frozen and doing nothing is also not the way forward. So you're absolutely right. It's a slippery territory. And I too am the colonizer. And I thank you for those words, helping me kind of understand my positionality. I've just never really articulated it in that regard. And I do believe that we have as educators, we have this great opportunity to, talk with our students about these issues. I think the only way to make change is to become aware of things. And the only way to become aware of things is to be exposed to things. And the exposure is our lived experiences. And my creation of the international service learning is the exposure to not just other and other culture, it's getting to know yourself. and understanding yourself in this world and who you want to become in order to be a better human being at the end of the day. And Paulina, you also had a question in the chat, and would you mind like just articulating it? Because I'm not so sure I'm getting the whole context of your question.
No, sure. Thank you. No, thank you, Susan and Sebastian, for sharing this. It was also very inspiring to hear about this collaboration studio and how you work. And for me in Mexico City, it's also very interesting to learn how this works in the United States, and why you want to work also in the South, and how you like manage these groups to come. We have had many collaborations with American schools also, and European schools. And in terms of the learning experiences for students, they are always very rich, and they're always very interesting. But my conclusion is more about what it meant for our communities. We work a lot with our neighbors and with the communities around our school, and it was always very difficult and very. It was a conflict for me to work with our neighbors and with international students, because I always thought that we were putting our neighbors in a difficult situation that they weren't even aware of. And we had the language barrier, and then international students always had like these exotic views of our communities and of Mexico, and this was very complicated to solve in 1 or 2 weeks. So at the end, we decided not to work anymore with international students and our community or another community in Mexico City. We only work locally, and we decided to design special workshops around certain topics with international students. So for example, we do, things about environmental issues, and we deliver workshops that are only focused on those things. And because we do see that this is very interesting, and this is a very powerful experience for all the students, our students and foreign students at the time, but we don't think it's the best way to work. And we think that we expose our neighbors to something that is like exoticizing them, and it doesn't really feel right for us. So, and I know it's a difficult, it's complicated. And I've been working in these 4 years also with artists, with very renowned international artists, and I always end in the same conclusion. So I don't do this anymore. So it was more like a comment, and it's very interesting also to hear you and to learn from you and your perspectives. And I completely agree with you in some points, but it's more about like feeling like it doesn't feel right for me anymore.
Yeah. Paulina, thank you so much for that comment. I think it's so incredibly valid too. And I could be doing it all wrong, and this could be a huge mistake. I have no idea. I will say that before we partner with a really vulnerable population or a group of people, I make sure I spend time on site with them in person. Obviously, this was pre-COVID, so they can have not just trust in me, but that they actually invite me to come. Like I will seed an idea with them about this is what we could do if you're interested, and then I leave it on their table, and then I'll see if they actually reach back out to me and contact me and say, yes, this is something that we want to do. So I've tried very hard to make that somewhat consistent in my community engaged projects, so that I'm not kind of flying in, coming in and this idea of seeing the exotic parts of Brazil or.
No, I completely get you, Susan. I mean, I worked with this for many years as an art curator and with foreign artists, and I really I know it comes from a good place, and it comes with a lot of commitment from you, and I really did it like that for many years. I just at the end I thought that we had many local problems that we could really look at them, like a lot of opportunities that didn't really have to do with like terrible places or very poor communities, or it just was like the everyday life in local problems surrounding our community. So at the end, what we decided is that we wanted our students to learn to see in that everyday life and learn to see in the places they work and live, how they belong to those places and how they owe to those places their responsibility. And that's what we wanted to teach them.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
There's actually a great body of literature on this topic, and it's been characterized. I think the concept is benevolent tourism, where you have all of these kind of church group or school group that end up says we're going to do good elsewhere, and they've measured the harm of it, and I think often it's a matter of how we do it. But to be frank, I don't think it only applies when we go internationally. You could go to your neighbor and do a lot of harm. It's about whenever you engage with vulnerable population, you have to think about what am I bringing from my perspective. And what we see now, and I've read a really interesting perspective on this, is like we need to design from the get-go our exit strategy. It's not only how we get in, but how we get out. And because that's a problem. We're done with our project, we packed our stuff, and we go back to our university. Well, people are still having to live with the mess that we've made. And so I think we need to grow our responsibility and our awareness to the impact that we may have, with our partner, and start designing and finding how do we get out, and bringing the question of measuring this and assessing the impact of our work. We're doing design for social impact. Well, what impact? What's the measuring stick? It's not about turning this into an Excel spreadsheet, but we need to be accountable, and we need to have indicators that will help form what we do, so that we can not only do it better, but doing it right the next time around. So yeah.
Please go ahead. You have your hand up.
Hi, Spiros from Syros, Greece. I just think it's a super interesting discussion topic, and I agree with Ezio completely. I might be younger, but I'm still, white male, might not be the best person to talk about these things. Probably my way back ancestors came up with the idea of colonizing ancient Greeks, but at the same time, and I think it's part of the lesson about sharing your personal perspective and trying to understand where you're coming from, your implicit and explicit bias. At the same time, I feel as standing, on the crossroads of the Mediterranean, used to be the Ottoman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, Balkans. People have been passing through many, many years. And then the crisis. I'd say most of the time I feel like part of the global South as a Greek, having, especially grown up during the time I grew up. And to add on the discussion, I think that Athens, for example, also has been a hotbed for what we would like to call, in Greek, it might be slacktivism, it might be this romantic idea of riot tourism and visiting Athens to see where all of those social things are taking place. But to actually be embedded in the place, to have an impact, to be part of it, I don't think you can just paradrop into any situation And especially, you know, in the context that we're talking about with social innovation and have impact, because it's about making social alliances. It's about working together. It's about creating a structure and, you know, to paraphrase the great Ezio Manzini, to turn the diffuse design capacity that people already have into something stronger and something that can exist after the designers and creatives have left. They've gone back to Berlin or back to Sirius in my case, and they have actually created a self-replicating system in a way. So I just wanted to echo the same thing from a different corner of the world, that it's hard. I think just the fact that we think about it and we find ourselves asking, are we being colonizers here? Are we being liberators? Are we being parts of a wider alliance? You know, what's our role and how can we empower the people who have been taken, you know, they have taken their everything pretty much. So I think I just wanted to add that just the fact that we're here having this discussion right now, I think is a great step. It's not the end, it's the start of this process. So thank you all.
Yeah, Spear, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I love where this conversation is going, but our time is now actually coming to a close for the DESIS Lab. I think the one last thing I want to leave with is two terms that have kind of bifurcated the conversation a little bit, is design and social innovation, and design and social justice. And I firmly, I would love to have more critical insight from all of you at another time about the kind of the social justice work I believe I'm doing, because I'm sure there's much more criticality that can be brought to the table. However, I do think that the bifurcation of the conversation in terms of social innovation and kind of that place-based work that local communities need to be doing, and as Arturo Escobar might say, their community local efforts and alternative realities, alternative economies are certainly under kind of the larger umbrella of social innovation. My work, I don't understand it as social innovation. That's too broad for me in a way, but it is about a type of justice, and it is design pedagogy that is attempting to demonstrate to students how design can be a vehicle and a tool for going towards more social justice. So, of course, the whole idea of the DESIS Café is in order to engage you guys in these really awesome conversations, because indeed this is how we grow, this is how we evolve, this is how we do change the world, and these are all the types of conversations and insights that we can bring back to our students, who are really the next generation to take on the work that's been kind of initiated and started. So I'm going to let Sebastian say goodbye, and I just want to thank you all very much for joining Sebastian and I today, and really great to see you all. Just stay connected. I'm going to put my email down in the chat, and absolutely please feel free to reach out at any time. I really appreciate the DESIS Labs and the networking. So thank you, Ezio, for all that you do for us.
So I don't really know what much I can add to what Susan just said, but thank you everybody for attending our cafe. And I want to extend, the invitation Susan just said. She's like, we are eager to collaborate with other DESIS Lab around the world. So please, whenever you feel like it, we're a really collaborative group, would be more than welcome, more than happy to collaborate and envision ways to collaborate with every one of you. So again, thank you for attending, and see you, I guess, at the next DESIS Café.
Thank you, Susan and Sebastian. And I'm sorry, I'm echoing. So remember all that on the 3rd of this September, we will have Conversations for the Planet. And on 17th of November, we will have another, I believe, amazing DESIS Café for everyone. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.